Welcome to Excel 365 Online for Intro Stats, Assignment 2, Graphs. This assignment uses the cloud-based online Excel 365. We are not using desktop. The assignment file is below if you're not a student. If you are a BHCC student, the assignment for you is on Moodle. The purpose of assignment 2 is to be able to make basic graphs, line charts, basic and more specific bar charts, and pie charts. First, let's start with line charts. Line charts are useful for showing trends over time. To create a line chart, you have to have some data that can be represented over a continuous range. Typically, it's time, like months, and then the sales for months. Now, this one does fit in a straight line. Line charts don't necessarily have to be a straight line. However, they're not scatter plots. They are connected dots. So a line chart typically is something that you look at to see how things are doing over a trend of time. Okay. To make a line chart in Excel, first highlight the data. Obviously, the data has to be in Excel. In this case, you're going to highlight two columns of data, one of which is going to have like the time, the x-axis information, and the other is going to have the y-axis data points like sales that you're going to put on that part of the line. Okay. Click the Insert tab, select Line Chart, and then choose the specific line chart type. And I'm going to illustrate this. Also, as always, please adjust your titles. It's extremely rare in Excel to get a graph with a decent title. So typically you do have to adjust the titles. Also, in line charts, very often we would also want to adjust our X and Y axes to be a little bit more specific. Okay. So we are now going to go into Excel and look at how to do this in Excel. So I have the assignment up. It's assignment 2 graphs. This is the 365 version, which because I don't have any other tabs open, it's hard to even tell that it's the 365 version. So there's actually 5 tab sets in here. The blue are the examples. I'm going to start with the line chart, and then there's 3 bar chart ones and then a pie chart one. And then the yellows are the student assignment that you're going to do and submit, and I will grade. Okay. So this first one has a couple different, like this is time, and then I think this is like rainfall for like some weird place. So I'm gonna do a line chart of the average rainfall over time. And so I'm gonna select both of these. Okay. And then I'm gonna go to Insert. And then I'm going to go to my little graph pull down over here. Now, this is still a line chart too, but you really don't want to use that. You want to go down here and you want to specifically pick a line chart from here. Line charts display trend over time. And also, this kind of goes without saying, but your data should be sorted like from earliest time to latest time. If you try to do a time chart and like don't have it sorted, don't do that. And then I click on this and I get this, and you're like, well, where's my, oh, it's here. But this is not actually what I want at all. So I kind of did it wrong. So let's do this again. Let's go under here and go to Insert and go down here. And we want to do a line chart, but we get this. And you're like, that doesn't look right. You're right. This is totally and completely nonsensical. What we want to have on our x-axis is time, and on our y-axis the averages, and basically what we have is none of that. This is like a disaster. So let's click on this and see if we can fix it up. Now you would think that you would get like a correct sort of suggested chart, but you don't. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is switch rows and columns, which doesn't help one bit. Now this is a total disaster, so I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. And then I'm going to go to Insert. And there is no like wizard thing in the online version of Excel. So I'm going to pull this down. I don't want a stacked line. I want just a basic line chart. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's right click and do select data And I want to go over here and see what I can do with this. Horizontal axis labels. Okay. That's going to be my time. Okay, that gets me a little closer. Um, let's click on this and see what we got. Okay. Line values. Now let's switch the line values, get rid of that, and let's put the average in. There we go. Now we're getting a little bit better. In fact, we're getting a lot better. I think we got it. So I went and clicked on this, and then I adjusted the horizontal axes, and then it had both things selected for line values, so I changed that, and then this is actually what we want. So be careful when you look at them and make sure they make sense. So now we have the plot we want, but the title is still basically awful. First, let's get rid of the legend. We really don't need that. Then what I want to do is look at the horizontal axes. And let's label that time in years, or you can either label it time or year, something descriptive. And so my axes title is down here, axes title. And I'm going to label this as not axes title, time, or just let's just put year. That should work. Okay. There we go. Now I definitely want to change my title. I know the column is so it's average rainfall. That's what it is. So that's at least decent. And then right here, let's also label this. That's the vertical axis. So when you click on the vertical axes, you should be able to go over here and then vertical axes. You could not display the axes, but that generally is not a good idea because then there's no like reference numbers on it. And then we go down here and we go to axis title. Let's put rainfall amount, average rainfall amount. Okay, good. So now we have that. I'm not a super fan of the orange either, so let's go ahead and change that to something a little bit more sophisticated. Maybe dark blue. There you go. Now that is actually a halfway decent line chart, and you can see the trend over time. It kind of seems to go up and down in a little bit of a pattern, but that is a good example of a line chart in Excel Online. Okay. Next, we have bar charts. Now, bar charts are useful for comparing quantities in different categories. So typically you have to have some type of categorical variable and a quantitative variable. It could be discrete or continuous. If it's continuous, you generally want to bin it and then do counts of the bins, and then that's what you plot. But and bar charts and column charts, I use these interchangeably. Technically, bar charts go horizontal and column charts go up and down vertical. Effectively, a bar chart and a column chart are just identical charts. It just depends on how they're flipped. Okay. Here's the catch. For the rest of the charts we're going to do, unlike line charts, the data has to be summarized. So if you have raw data, you have to do a pivot table and get your counts, and then you do your plot from your counts. Now, in the desktop version of Excel, there's like wizard things that will kind of take care of this. As far as I know, in the online Excel, you have to summarize your data first. So here is just some summarized data on fruits. So basically you have to do your pivot table to get counts. That was the first assignment, and you learn how to make pivot tables on all kinds of data there. So you do need that skill of making pivot tables in order to do a lot of the charts in Excel. So first we're going to actually do the pivot table of the data. So let's do that first. Okay. So I'm in Excel, and this is my bar chart data. Now I'm going to make a bar chart a variable shelf, but in order to do that, I first want to summarize it. So I'm going to take my variable shelf. Now, I don't want to just take the entire row this time because remember when we do pivot tables, we get weird stuff. So I'm going to take shelf, and I'm going to go insert, pivot table, put it on the same existing worksheet. Let's put it like here. Be careful about where you put it because you don't want to be too sloppy. Put that here. And then we have shelf, which we're going to put in rows. And then we want to do values. And that's all we need. We just want to have the count. We don't need anything else. We don't need to do a complete relative frequency chart because we really don't need the percents. Okay, so now I want to do a bar chart. So I'm going to select the data. I'm going to do insert. I'm going to select the chart type. And then I'm going to edit things as I desire. You always want to edit your title and very likely your axes. You often might want to change your colors so that you just don't always have the default blue. Okay, so let's go do a bar chart. Okay, so I'm in Excel again, and I made my pivot table, and I want to select this. Now you can select just the data or the headings. You don't want to select, you do not want to select the grand total because you don't want that picked up as another bar. So with that selected, I'm going to go to insert. I'm going to go over to my like graph drop down thing, and I'm going to either do a column chart or a bar chart. These are effectively exactly the same thing. So I just call them all bar charts. So here we go. Very simply, this is what I get. It's pretty much done for us. Again, you do want to edit this. Now I have the pivot table open. This is actually what's called a pivot chart. So it's a little more complicated to play with. It has like the layer of the pivot table and the chart. It's also linked so that if you change this data, you'll change this as well. But I want to edit my chart title. This is just shelf because this is the serial data and it's like what shelf it's on. And then I don't really want the legend because this not only isn't doing anything, it's pretty much like distracting. So that. And then I could edit my colors just to look really kind of nice. Now, this right here is the chart title. So you want to edit this. You want to actually click on these and then edit the color from here. So let's make it, I don't know, green. Okay. And so that's a nice simple bar chart. Now you might want to put this as counts. It's kind of intuitive that this is the counts, but you could edit this axes and you could put an axes label on this if you wanted to. You can also display the data. This is just going to be counts. So it's not very exciting, but that would add a little bit of detail to it. Okay, so that's a really simple basic bar chart in Excel. You could also do, you could click on this. Now the pivot table ones are a little funky. Like you can actually like copy the data out and then paste special and get it out of a pivot table. Because when it's running in a pivot table, it is linked. So you can also do the chart this way, which I actually like a little better. And then you could relabel that. So that's just in the desktop version, you can flip it from here, but I don't think you can do that in the online version. So this would technically be a column chart and this would technically be a bar chart, but they're basically the same thing to me. Okay. So next we're going to talk about modifying our bar charts, and there's two modifications I'm going to talk about. One of which is a stacked bar chart. This is more detailed. So instead of just having bars, you have like different regions and then the fruits in each region, and you're doing like a stacked bar where you have like the blue is the apples, the bananas, the oranges, and the grapes. And so these are just counts. So this is a stacked bar chart displaying counts. Okay. This is the data for that chart. It's just basically fake data. And again, the data needs to be summarized in a pivot table for this to work. But the pivot table is going to be a little different because instead of just having like counts, we're going to have like a two-way pivot table. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Okay. So let's go in Excel and I'll show you how to do that pivot table. Okay. So this is the third of the 5 tabs, stacked bar chart example, which for some reason my Excel is like actually stuck. Okay, so I'm back in Excel and I have the tab for the stacked bar chart open. However, we need to make a pivot table because I don't even think it's going to, like, you can't just like click on like the raw data and like have it and do insert and like get a stacked bar chart. You just get like a total disaster. So it's easy to make graphs in Excel, but it's not so easy to make graphs in Excel. So what I want to do first is create a summary table. Now this is data on coffee and just like different sizes and prices of coffee. Make a stack bar chart of type and size. So first I'm going to take both columns. Okay. I'm going to go insert, pivot table, and then it's automatically selecting both existing worksheet and I want to put a pivot table there. Okay. Now, yes, I do have two categorical variables, so this is a little different than doing a frequency table with this. So I'm going to take one of them and make it rows, one of them and make it columns. It actually doesn't really matter because we're just doing practice. So like this is how it's going to divvy that up. And then in order to get counts, I just drag either one down. It doesn't matter which one because the counts are going to be redundant. And now I actually have a summarized pivot table of hot coffee for large, large, medium, small. I don't particularly like the order of this, but I'm not going to fix that because that's a little bit of work. But this is what we need in order to make a stack bar chart. We need to have the coffees and the sizes. Okay. So I'm going to select these and let's go back into PowerPoint. Okay. So my mission here is to make a stacked bar chart. And now I have my summarized data kind of like this, but it's two categorical variables and then um, the counts. And you want two related variables like this is apple sales by region, or you could also think of it as sales and then fruit by sales. But you want to have something like this to do a stacked bar chart. And then these are all counts in a table. And we just made one with a pivot table. Okay. So to actually make the chart, I'm going to highlight the data range from the pivot table, not the original data. Insert bar, and then I'll show you what a stack bar looks like. Okay. And then of course we're going to edit our title and axes labels and maybe our bar colors. Okay. Um, that's the first type of stack bar chart. Okay. Now the second type, pay attention to this because this one you're like all the bars are the same size. This one is actually doing a percent stack. These are a little hard to interpret, honestly. This one is counts. Like this is straight the numbers off of here. And so if you looked at West sales, it's going to be 30, 40, 30, 50. And you can see this is the smallest one. And if you actually looked on this axis, the blue is 30. And then you could actually kind of sit here and interpolate like what the green region was, nuts and bananas. And then ideally you actually have the chart. Oops. You have this alongside the bar chart for reference, which is actually a nice thing to do. These are sort of easier to interpret. These are actually percents. So this is like apples 100%, and then the percent that is like north sales, south sales. These you can do these. They're basically pie charts for like each subdivision in terms of like they're all like 100% of the apples and then the four sale regions. These are a little hard to interpret. They look super nice. Um, and they do serve a purpose. They're not quite the same thing as the stacked count charts, but I'm going to show you both of these. So I'm now back in Excel and I've made my pivot chart of my coffee types and sizes. Um, and I'm going to go insert and see what I can do with getting a stacked bar chart on this. So um, I don't know what it's complaining about. It doesn't like me for some reason. Okay. So I just need the data. That's all I need. And I'm going to go to insert. Oh, maybe I'm not. Maybe it does need that. I don't know. Okay, now it likes it. And then I'm going to try to do a stacked bar chart with this. Let's see what happens. That's actually pretty good. That's actually not bad. It's actually exactly what I want. The colors are sort of ugly. And they're very much the same because the data is actually the same. So this is actually perfect. So this is like a stacked bar chart of the hot coffee and then the large, medium, small, and then there's one extra large, and then this is like the legend. You do actually need the legend in this one. In some cases, the legend's kind of like useless, but you do actually want that. So this would be coffee sizes by coffee type. So that would be kind of a decent title for it. And these, you do actually want to label this. This would be counts. In this case, I think it's kind of important to actually label the vertical axes. So let's put an axis title of counts. Okay, there we go. That's halfway decent. Okay. So a little bit of work, you get a much nicer graph. Now, let's get rid of my beautiful graph here. Or sometimes in the online version, I mean, in the regular version, you can actually just click on this and change the type. I think we can. Let's try this. So for the column slash bar charts, this is the basic one. This is the stacked one. And then this is the percent one. I think I can just click on this to change it. I can. Perfect. So now instead of this is no longer actually displaying the data in the pivot table. This is actually displaying the percents. So this should actually be percent. And then we have one of these stacked bar charts, which are beautiful to look at, but I do find them a little bit, they're sort of disproportionate. So in this case, they're actually fairly even, but if we had like a really small one for iced coffee and hot coffee, you still have the same size bars in these percent charts. But this is another version of a stacked bar chart, except you're illustrating the percents of each group instead of the counts. Okay, so next there's another type of bar charts. The reason I'm showing you these is bar charts. Line charts and pie charts, there's only so much you can do with, but bar charts tend to be really nice for like showing like subgroups and like counts by subgroups and stuff. So the next type of bar chart is what I call the cluster or split bar chart. And this is where like typically this works really well if you have two, maybe three groups. If you start to have like six groups, then they get kind of busy looking. But you're having like for apples, you have north and south and they're like side by side. This is often done like with gender or like adults and children and treatment and control stuff. So these are a nice way to display series data side by side, making it easy to compare usually two or three categories like within each kind of group. You don't want to do like too many more than that. They're very similar to produce to the other types of bar charts. Make a pivot table. In order for these to not be just basic bar charts, you have to have like two different categories because otherwise it would just be a simple bar chart. And then when you make your pivot table, you want to select the data from the pivot table, do insert bar chart, select the right chart type, and then fix it up a little in terms of editing and axes labels and adjusting bar colors. So let's go in and do one of these. Okay, so I'm back in Excel, and even though this is the same data, I'm going to do another pivot table, and we're going to do type and size again. Technically, I don't really have to redo this because it's in the prior tab, but go ahead and select the two columns. Put it in the existing worksheet. Put it like here. That's good. Let's do them the other way this time. So let's do size and then type. Okay. And again, we want to drag either variable and get counts because you're going to get the same counts either way. There we go. And then what we want to do is select the data. Don't select the totals. You don't want the totals because like you don't want that to be treated like as additional data. Okay. And so select the actual data that you want on the graph. Go to insert and then go down here. And you want to go to the same one that we went to for the basic bar chart, except it's recognizing that there's different categories and it's going to graph like this. Now this one isn't super exciting because hot coffee is blue, iced coffee is orange, but it just turns out in this data that these are like all the same. So it's only the extra large, there's anything different. Again, you want to change your title to be something a little more interesting, like types of coffee by size. So that's a nice title. And then it has a legend. And then this, you probably want to actually, I don't really like the decimals in here. You know what I mean? So like you don't really want to have the decimals, so you could just get rid of those. So that would get rid of the decimals. And then possibly a nice axis title and just put it like as counts. Yeah. And these you can change the color by like clicking on each individual one. I don't particularly love orange, but you can click and play around with the colors. Okay. So that is I call it either a split bar or a cluster bar chart. These are very different looking than these. So the bars are separate for the different groups. And the stack bar, they're just like all together. So bar charts are a little bit more sort of like fun and sophisticated, and you should be able to produce a couple different types of bar charts by doing first do pivot tables and then do the bar chart stacked or cluster type charts. Okay. So that's it for the bar charts. There's one more chart type. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about is pie charts. Now, pie charts are great because honestly, a 4-year old can understand these. Like they're that understandable, which is terrific about them. They're great if you're displaying percentages of categories and it's late at night and you want to just really convey something really quick. Um, so in order to make a pie chart in Excel, it's kind of like the other charts. Again, we want to use summarized data. So we're using count data. So if we have our raw data, we want to do our pivot table first and get our count data. Okay. Then when we have our count data from the pivot table, we're going to select the data, go to insert. Now pie chart is going to be easy to find on the chart menu because it looks like a pie. It looks and smells exactly what you're looking for. Okay. And then we're going to edit the chart title, edit the labels, and change the colors if we wish to. Okay. And so let's go look at our last chart. And I'm in Excel again. And the last blue tab is the pie chart example. And this is the serial data. It says make a pie chart of target. Now, target is adult and child. So that's like who the serial is marketed to. So I'm going to select the column. Select the data rather. You don't necessarily want to select the entire column because remember the pivot tables, it will like not ignore the blank rows and you'll get this kind of like icky little blank thing in there. You can clean that out from the pivot table, but it's easier to just not put it in the first place. So go to insert pivot table and then go to like somewhere nice. Make sure that you just click the buttons in the correct, like pay attention to what you're doing. Just hit go. Go back up here, like put a place to put the pivot table, hit go. Now it's looking easy, right? So now you've done so many pivot tables, you're like easy. Put this in rows. It's a categorical variable, so we're automatically going to get counts. And there's the data. And then what we want to do is select this from the pivot table and then go to insert. And the pie chart one, ordinarily I want you to go like through this, but the pie chart one is so obvious, you can just click that. And there's our pie chart. And you would want to retitle this as serial target. Serial target market. And again, I think the colors are a little ugly, but you can adjust like format and then you can play with this. I'll probably just make them uglier, but that's actually the outside part. So I just kind of like play around and like click on things. It's kind of sensitive. Like you gotta like click in exactly the right place. Um, and you can click on this and change the colors. And make it a little bit better looking. I accidentally put a green highlight in there. But so that is how to make a pie chart. Now pie charts are nice if there's only like up to about 6 slices. If we try to do a pie chart like on manufacturer, it would be a little bit busy looking. But that is how to do your basic charts in Excel. So you should be able to do line charts, simple bar charts, stacked bar charts, cluster bar charts, and pie charts. Remember, with the exception of the line chart, you need to run these on summarized data. Okay, so the yellow tabs are for the students to do and submit. Enjoy.